Welcome to our last autumn chickpea video on our virtual field day. Just like to round off the videos by explaining what happens at the end of the season and some of these potential marketability problems that we think are going to be the biggest challenge for this new potential growing season. So behind me here is PBA SEMA. So this was sprayed out roughly a month ago. And you can see the plot's grown very well. There's really good yield in there. The plants were very happy at harvest, but there are some potential marketability issues. I've turned the camera around so we can have a little look. So you can see as you look into the canopy, even after it's been sprayed out, still quite green. So this is over a month after spray out. And these are very flexible. Not going to go through a header very well, but probably more significant than that is how many of these pods, well that one's been eaten, how many of these pods here have immature seed in them. So I'll try and open this with one hand. Nope, can't do it. Here we go. So if I open up the pod there, you can see the immature seed inside. And there's lots of seed in there. This one's got two seeds in it, but just too immature. So this line, even though SEMA is one of the better ones of the commercial lines which has potential for this particular system, it's still not short season enough, and it just doesn't pull up on its own. So you've got this two problems really: trying to spray it out enough so that you can get it dry enough to harvest while the growing season is so favourable to green growth. And then the other challenge is you've got these immature seeds at the top of the branches. I'll just compare it to one of the breeding lines beside it. So first thing you'll obviously notice is how short this one is. So this one won't be ready to go into commercial production at all. But there is one trait that I want to point out. So this line actually, even though it looks dead now, it did die on its own. It didn't need the spray out to kill the whole plant. It was dry almost the whole way up the branch, like it normally would be if it was grown in a winter season, ready to harvest in November. But what I really want to point out is that at the tops of the branches, these seed pods are almost crunchy enough to be threshed out properly in a header. Let me try and open this one up. So these seeds here, only the very top, see if the camera will focus, only the very top was really quite green at spray out. But you only have to go down a couple of pods from the top to find ones that are big and mature. So you can see in there. So that was the third pod down. See if it will focus. There you go. Some of these ones do have weather damage on it, but that's just a factor of this was a trial, and trying to pick the time to spray out when you've got things at such different maturities was really tricky. If I shake it, hopefully you can hear that there's lots of mature seed in those pods that had separated out from the actual plant before it was sprayed. I've now moved over to time of sowing 2, and I just want to point out one more thing in the field, because this only got sprayed out a couple of days ago, and it's really clear to see the genetic differences between the lines that end on their own and the ones that are still trying to grow when you really want them to be dying. So I'll hold the camera up and you see that patchwork behind me. That's not actual differential spraying, and there is some disease in there, but most of that isn't actually disease. That is the genetic differences between the plants that die themselves and the ones that are still trying to keep going. So it's so clear in this time of sowing too, even though the yields in this time of sowing are going to be a little bit less, it was planted a little bit late, that you can see the ones that have that potential to stop on their own. Here's one example of the disease. So these most likely are virus symptoms in here, single plants where they've been infected by aphids passing through the field. But you can see, even in winter, they're still trying to flower. Some of the pods are still setting. So this particular line, as well as being virus infected, it is actually still trying to push through. And compare that to the one right next to it. which is dried out all on its own, and you can hear that crisp pod there, ready for harvest without even needing to be too much of a spray. But I'll see if I can get the camera to focus. There we go. You can see the weather damage on the chickpeas. So these marketability problems is really going to be the main problem with this system, not so much getting the plants to grow at this time of year, but getting marketable chickpeas. Well, that's it on this autumn chickpea. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the virtual field days. Would love to hear your thoughts. Would this system work for you? What's wrong with it? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? And where do you think the research should go next? And I'd encourage you also to contact your local GRDC representative with some ideas that you might have for further research. As closing, I want to give a shout out to the people I work with on this, Emma Pavey and Prue Gordon, who's an undergraduate student doing her research on this trial. And also to my colleagues at the DPI at Tamworth, Kevin Moore and also Christy Hobson and her chickpea breeding team, who bred this line PBAC and have done an amazing job. So thank you everyone for your collaboration, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.